So yeah, please people check out Black Ballad on BaggerKit. It's doing really well. It's last I checked, it was over $100,000. I think it's got 2 weeks left. I'm not sure.
I'll put the link in the description if I can get it. If you want to send it to me, I'll put it in the description and people can check that out.
Yeah, here it is. Let's see. Yeah, $112,000 with 18 days left.
Ooh, not long. Quick, people, get on that.
Yeah. It's a great team of people on it. I'm not the lead writer on this. It's a friend of mine's project, and he asked me to be part of it, and I was like, definitely. It's
awesome.
That's the brilliance of Kickstarter, BackerKit, all these things. It allows those people who are like, you know what, no one's ever done this stupid thing. You know, why don't we do that stupid thing? And everybody's like, you know what? How many times has my party died? And that was the end of it. And everybody's upset, and because they love those characters. Okay, now here's your afterlife campaign. You know,
right?
It's there's a lot of good stupid ideas out there, and Kickstarter and BackerKit and all these things allow people to get the funding to do them. So
yeah.
And when I say stupid ideas, I mean I don't mean it negatively. I mean it's like
out there ideas.
Yeah, it's basically what I mean. Yes, it's out there, and it's also an idea that a corporation would be like, we're not doing that.
Right?
No, what are you, crazy? But because it's that, the audience wants it. So
right. One of the guys I quite like, he's a behavioral market research guy, very funny. And he always said no one's ever got fired from their business, especially in the 80s and 90s, suggesting they buy IBM. So, you know, and that's sort of what he's getting at. You know, it's like they will always do the safe thing because, or they'll keep returning to the same thing because that's what companies do. Even role-playing companies, they'll go, well, this worked. Like you said, oh, well, let's go back to this because that worked. But someone says, but what about this? And they go, well, we don't know if people would like it. Whereas, you know, maybe people do get tired of the same thing over and over and over again. And there is a lot of good ideas that are a risk because they're not what happened before. Right. And I guess Kickstarter is a good way to test that. If it doesn't work, you didn't invest necessarily the same amount as if you went, we've got to get the book into production, try to get it into the stores, and then no one buys it. Whereas you do Kickstarter, oh, we made enough, we can produce it and then try to build from there, or it becomes a really good success. And yeah, I think that Kickstarter is a decent platform for sure.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting with Black Ballad, they decided to go with BackerKit. Like they didn't go to start with Kickstarter, they started right at BackerKit. But BackerKit's doing this now on its own as well. And clearly it's doing well there. So it's great to see all these avenues for creativity that weren't there before, you know.
So do you think it plays better as a long campaign or a short cinematic movie, The Terminator?
That's a good question. The funny thing is that I haven't really written any cinematics for it, so I'm leaning towards campaign. From the beginning, the idea was that there was going to be the core book and a campaign book. And the campaign book was originally, it was just stories that were based on the comics or spun out of the comics. Okay, so the thing is that they were putting this together as a book, and I was like, well, that's not really a campaign because none of those stories have anything to do with each other. Plus, everyone's read those comics. So, you know, if you're a Terminator mega fan and you back this thing, you probably read those comics. You know how they end. How are you going to play that? So,
right.
What Ian Thomas and I did was build a framework around it that connected all these stories together and shift things a little bit so that nothing was just the comic again. It was something that was a fallout from the comic. So it involved most of the elements from the comic, but it went in a slightly different direction. To create a campaign where you, in that campaign is, you know, you start in the future, find this thing that happens, you have to go back in time to stop this other thing, and eventually, you know, it ends with you retiring or dead. you know, but you retire in the past. The campaign we're doing for the online stuff is different because it's the time displacement commandos. There's if you make it through all 12 adventures, there's a crazy subversion of expectations, I guess.
A surprise.
You're gonna put things together that you didn't realize from the beginning. So we had a lot of fun building like that, and we built it like a streaming series.
Right.
So so we thought, here's a self-contained episode which is part of the bigger story. So it's funny. I didn't even think of that until you said it to me. It's been completely different than the way I've been handling Alien, because Alien, the focus has been on the cinematics, and we didn't even think of that. So I wonder if that maybe that comes from some love of Sarah Connor Chronicles, and the fact that I think that the future of all these things is got to be in streaming.
Right.
I think movies is an expenditure of a ridiculous amount of money for a little bit of time on the screen.
Right.
And even when you're paying $15 million an episode for a series, you're getting more content out of that.
Right.
And you're getting people coming back and staying on your channel every week. So I think that's where we're going. I mean, we went from radio to the movie theaters being, the grand thing, and I think it's gonna become streaming. Maybe not in our lifetime. Maybe in Emily's lifetime. But yeah, I think that's where the future of entertainment is. So look at all the success Disney has had with Star Wars on streaming, and the confusion that happened with the movies. It's
right. There's definitely an expectation different when something is like Moon Knight. I enjoyed Moon Knight as a streaming series.
Mm-hmm.
If that had been the story of the movie, I don't know if I would have loved it quite as much. I might have wanted more costume, less Oscar Isaac sort of thing when it came to a movie, because it's sort of like it'd be the same as Batman. Bruce Wayne's cool, but I like Batman.
Yeah.
And in a streaming series, I'm not going to complain as much if there's a really cool Bruce Wayne arc that takes up more of the screen time than the suit or the car sort of thing.
Because you're still plenty of time for your Batman in costume.
Yeah, exactly.
If we're going to talk about Batman, actually, you just made me realize it's like the Batman, the movie that came out last year, was it? Year before?
Yep.
Yeah. With Robert
Pattinson,
Robert Pattinson. That actually, it's a really long movie.
It is, yes.
And it doesn't fall into the movie trap. Like, okay, the first Iron Man movie, right? I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm a huge fan of Robert Downey Jr. I'm a fan of things that happened in it. But that movie, it's like Marvel was like, we're going to do things a little differently. And you could see the seeds of what became the Marvel formula in there.
Right.
But it gets afraid in places and falls back on that superhero formula we've seen since the 1989 Tim Burton Batman. The Captain America film, the first Captain America film, has got the biggest problems with that. It just now we need the big explosion, and now 3, 2, 4, 1. Now we need the betrayal. It follows this formula, and then now people complain that the Marvel movies are the same. Actually, I don't think that they are all the same. They do have certain beats that are the same, but what they're the same is not something that they created that took superhero movies in a different way. When superhero movies in the 80s and 90s were this misunderstood bastard child that wound up being put in front of viewers because the Hollywood execs were like, hey, people like it. I don't know. You know, there was no real understanding of what comic books was. And now we have people like, you know, Kevin in charge of Marvel that clearly know what this is about and what to do with it, you know. So right. Marvel changed everything with that. And then, but like, there's some movies that some movies like Black Adam that came out, and I felt like this is almost going back to the old formula instead. It's do we need formulas? No, we don't need formulas. Okay. But right. Once you have a success, people are going to follow it. Right. Right. But the streaming format gives us these opportunities to do wacky things that you can't risk. You're risking money, but you're not risking quite the same.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I don't know if that's making any sense or not.
No, totally. Lets them take chances that they wouldn't take as a big movie.
I mean, with Moon Knight, I wasn't even totally engrossed in it until the episodes when they went into the other reality or in his head together, and it was right. The last two episodes, I think. Suddenly I was like, so when everything was explained about the childhood and all that stuff, suddenly it was like, oh, this is awesome now. Like, I just liked the show until then. Now this show is awesome.
Right.
I can't imagine a movie having that slow a burn.
Right.
And still being able to be successful. But that Batman movie, I was all over the place here for a minute, but that Batman movie feels a lot like a streaming series to me when you're watching it.
Right.
It's not until the end when they get to now the city's flooded and we're putting people on the roof where suddenly it feels like a superhero movie again, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That was a tangent.
Hey, those are the best.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, for the Batman?
For Batman.
I think, yeah, we should probably say something, but I mean, it's been out a while, so who knows?
Yeah.
Which actually, when I was watching T2, I was wondering, is Terminator 2 in part a very early superhero movie in the sense that when the two Terminators are fighting, we've sort of got their they're throwing themselves through walls, just like Superman and Batman, and there's a lot of that sort of what became the sort of superhero fight, tossing them across the room 50 feet and rolling and getting back up. And is there an element of superhero to the Terminator?
You could take it in that direction, but I feel like I almost feel like that's kidifying it a little bit. Like, I'd rather view them as these terrifying machines who could rip us in half.
Fair.
And it's almost like, to me, it's more like watching Godzilla fight some monster and I want to get the hell out of here, you know, rather than a superhero. But then again, I mean, you know, with the Zack Snyder Batman vs Superman and stuff like that, the fallout of their fights would make people run anyway. Right. So, you know, so they're destructive forces, but I guess you could say the superheroes are destructive forces as well, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, The Boys certainly did that. The opening
Absolutely.
opening scene, the speedster killing the guy's girlfriend. She's just standing there, and
yeah, I love that show.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool show.
I was a fan of the comic when it came out, and then it went too far for me, and I stopped reading it. And the streaming series has taken the stuff that was best in the comic, I think, and gone in their own direction with it. So it's really good.
So in the Terminator, the GM is referred to in a way multiple times. There's little notes that says for the director.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a very conscious choice. Is it trying to get the GM to look at it more like the story framework of like a streaming service, in the sense of the players have to have choice, the players have to be able to do whatever they want. That is the purpose of an RPG.
Yeah.
But Is this sort of trying to get them to think more in the phrase you coined last time, which was an RPE, the role play experience, rather than focus on the game?
I forgot about that. I got to get that trademarked.
Yeah, we didn't.
Yeah.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah, it's role playing is so different now. You know, it's I grew up on it in the 80s, obviously, and it's just now it's something that's, you know, seen as therapeutic. It's seen as a way to work out issues. It's people now love the idea of taking the role of another character that they didn't even create. If the character's cool, and that's the trick with the cinematic stuff, make cool characters. It's the answer to what you're saying is yes and no, but yes for these people and no for these people, and it's just such a wide open thing now. I wonder where it's going to evolve next. Like how can we take it to another level? And I don't think LARPing is it. I've never been able to get into LARPing. I don't know if you guys have ever done it or
never done it. I know about it.
Seen it,
but
I've also never done the Renaissance Festival stuff or anything like that. It's never gone and done anything like that. I wonder if it's something that I need to do, like from a research standpoint, because I mean, obviously people who do that stuff are incredibly immersed in what they're doing, you know.
Well, I mean, I certainly enjoyed medieval times when I've gone, and I mean, you're buying into the spectacle of the joust, and you know, it's they're not super jousting, obviously, but you're buying into the hero of the night for your section and the sword fights, and they have the hawk. They do the hawk show where it flies around, and you know, the Renaissance fairs have an element of that to it for sure. I think it's an element of buy-in whenever you do anything like this. It's sort of like if you've got to be buying, and in RPGs too, we're always talking about buy-in. Alien, you've got to buy into it for sure. And Terminator 2 as well. If you don't buy into Alien, it breaks right at the start. If it's like, oh, facehugger, I know what that does. Right. This is my long lost brother. We finally met, but he's got the facehugger on him. Push him out the airlock, and it's like, really? Why? Yeah. I've seen the movies. It just breaks. You've got to be willing to buy in, and I think that's what.
Could be good practice then, going to a Renaissance festival or something, because I think in a way it would feel more silly to get out of character if you're there in costume than for some people it would if you're just sitting around a table with your friends. They'd be, I'm just joking around, it's whatever. But if you're there and you're dressed as a knight, you probably feel a little more need to stay in character.
Right.
I like in Loki, the show. They went to a Renaissance fair, and the woman's like, "You guys aren't dressed right. Some of us really need this."
Come on, get into it. Don't ruin my immersion. I think it could be fun.
Something we talked about before, which I was reminded of when I watched Picard recently with Shaw. And when you first meet Shaw, he seems just arrogant and belligerent and bitter and a very unlikable character in a lot of ways. And they leave him that way for a bit. And then you find out he was there during the Battle of the Borg. And he's like, and you know where your dad was, boy? You know where he was? Lakotas of Borg. And you find out he was stuck on the ship that was about to detonate. There was one life pod left that could take 10, and there was about 13 cadets. And a lieutenant turned up and just went, you, and chose 10 of the cadets and said, go. And the rest stayed. And he's got survivor's guilt, and he's bitter. And there's a reason for why he was not a villain, but for that sort of that unlikable element that was sort of there, that they sort of set him up as a mini villain at the start. You now went, oh, he's not this two-dimensional or one-dimensional creature that just exists because we went, oh, we want someone just to not be in awe of Picard and Riker. There's a reason he really has these. He's got survivor's guilt and all that bitterness of what happened, and he's struggling not to have that just leak out everywhere.
It also
in
makes
Terminator
sense.
terms.
It also makes sense why his main concern has been the safety of the crew the whole time.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
I think he's a great character. I actually would love to see if they did a spin-off series with him. I think that would be really interesting, surprisingly enough. There's this season of Picard, I'm like, where was this all along? You know, right. I enjoyed the first 2 seasons. I like the second season better than the first because I felt like they started to get it felt like we're doing things, you know. But still, this is Star Trek to me.
Yes.
This is up there with the best of it. And it's good to see that the Next Generation crew is getting that love. But I'm like, why couldn't we have had this in all those Next Generation movies that you squandered? You know, it's really interesting to see what they've done with it. And to me, what's amusing is that a lot of stuff they've done seem like the same type of stuff. There are people who hated Discovery and hated Strange New Worlds and Picard season 1 and 2 and all this stuff. Hated. Picard is doing some of the same things that those shows did.
Yep.
Maybe doing it in a more refined way, figuring out, don't just have a character like this. Let's get into it a little bit more, why he's like that and stuff like that. But stuff that I see these same people used to complain about, they're talking about how great it is on Picard.
Yes.
And it's what went wrong, what went right, and how do we make sure that moving forward, Star Trek embraces what went right here, you know? Because here's the thing, Nemesis is Star Trek 2. Yes. You know, an inferior version of it. Okay, but it's Star Trek 2. Picard season 3 so far is Star Trek 2.
Yep.
But it's awesome. and it's also not Star Trek 2. So, you know, I can watch them next to each other and not feel like they've been ripping off. But Nemesis tanked and didn't do it right. What did it not do right? What is this doing right that didn't? When Riker was playing it safe in the Nebula. Spoilers for people who haven't watched this. You better put
a ton of spoiler warnings on the beginning.
The Terminator discussion. There is some Star Trek spoilers.
Batman spoilers
and
too.
The Batman.
Yep. On Star Wars, if you haven't seen the original.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Empire Strikes Back as well, there's a thing about Luke's dad.
Oh dear.
All right, what the hell was I saying? What was I saying before?
When Riker was playing it safe in the Nebula.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The person I was watching it with was like, you know, that doesn't seem like Riker to me at all. All right, and I said, actually, it seems a lot like season 1 Riker to me, because the Riker who was afraid to become captain of the Drake, or the Riker who always was too comfortable in his first officer position to ever want to move out of there until Picard booted him out finally. You know, he was there was some I saw all I could think was there's something wrong with him. Someone else thought he's a changeling. I was like, no, that's Riker with done this before, and people have bitched about him for it in the past. And because the shit that he's going through in his personal life, it made perfect sense. He went back to the playing it safe Riker. That was brilliant. It seemed completely out of character at first, but then the more you dive into it and you think about the past, oh wait, okay, there must be something wrong. And it was that there was something wrong. It's not that they just didn't cover it and then someone like me comes in a novel and says, oh, there was something wrong then, and fills in the blank. They did it themselves with what they wrote. It was perfectly done. So tangent 52 is what we just did.
But I'd say there was a method to my madness, because bringing it to Terminator, It
Oh,
was
okay.
how do we make Skynet not that unlikable just thing? You know, it's like we have the Terminators up front. They're the face of, like, when Arnold was in the first one and the T-1000 in the second and stuff like that. But behind all of them is Skynet, and it's mentioned a lot. It's not like what's controlling them. We know it's Skynet, but for how do we make Skynet a interesting villain that isn't just something that would dot matrix on a screen going kill all humans, which is very limited. There has to be more to it than that, and we know there is. But how do we get that across? And how do the directors in the game get that across to their players, that it's not just this one-dimensional thing, that's the enemy that has no real depth?
Well, digging into this the whole Skynet versus Skynet 2.0 thing is a great way to show your players that there's more going on here, and it's just not this, you know, kill all humans, which we've seen since the 1950s. You know, the idea that, and that's also with that you might have Terminator allies for a mission who, you know, feel like we could use these people to do this thing, even to blame it. Like, we ourselves can't be only what we can't. It can't be that Skynet defeated Skynet at this thing, which led to a change. It has to be that it's the resistance. So we'll use these resistance guys, and then after they do this thing for us, we'll kill them, and then and we'll take all their information and then we'll destroy their base. You know, it's just like there's ways to see why are they doing that? What is going on here? What is the deeper purpose of everything? And if you play the Terminator characters also, there's an adventure that's in the game that basically that's in the source book that will basically show you internally what Skynet is trying to accomplish and try to get you back into its fold when you've been taken out of it. So you know, it's you hit the nail on the head 100% with this. It's like I don't want it's so easy to make it one-dimensional. And I feel like the fourth movie, we seem to come back to this fourth movie a lot, which is funny because but the fourth movie tried to make Skynet three-dimensional by using Helen Bonham Carter as an avatar, but I feel like that was the wrong direction to take that in. Like, you know, it shouldn't have a face. In fact, actually, the fifth and sixth movie did that too. They gave Skynet a face. You know, Skynet is more than. I would love to see something with Skynet where you're in a room with 6 Terminators, and Skynet is talking through the Terminators with different Terminators, you saying different words. You know what I'm saying, that are making a sentence because he's just taken them all over, and now you're talking to the greater entity that is Skynet. You know, that seems more terrifying than, oh, hi, I'm an avatar of Skynet. How you doing? You know, it's like, it seems like this. What is this thing that, you know, is able to pretty much be a god to the machines, literally, you know?
I did have an idea of having 3 of them or 4 of them talking to the players at one point, but I'm not GMing, it's him, so I couldn't do it.
You've got an idea for him?
Yeah, I did. Where each one was a different aspect of, like, the scientists. So scientific ones, that Terminator would talk. When it was a warrior, the warrior one would answer the question, or if there was one where it was trying to understand compassion or empathy, it would be
the
a
little
different
Cockney
one.
child.
Yeah, you and your Cockney child.
Oh, you're
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It'll be your Cockney elf. Okay, got
Hello,
it.
Governor. Come with me if you want to live.
No, that's awesome. That's cool. So, in anticipation of failing, Skynet basically copied itself into, let's say, 1,500 zip files. Okay, each is you need all those zip files together to come together to decompress it and put it back into create Skynet again. Okay, and they took one zip file and put it in each of 1,500 Terminators, and took those Terminators into read-write mode and sent them out. And so they all went into the wilderness or whatever, did whatever for a few years, and slowly all came back to this one Nexus node that Skynet had and installed the zip until the last one finally came and put it. So Skynet was destroyed in 2029 by John Connor, but the backup system slowly was rebuilt, and by 2033, Skynet 2.0 was active. So this idea of the different aspects that you have here with the scientist one and the Cockney kid who's
It's an important part of humanity Skynet needs to understand.
I'm sure
Yes.
chimneys will need sweeping in the future.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so no, that actually works really well with that. Like, I actually got my inspiration for that was the Now comics, which also was not part of the license, but in the Now comics, it was definitely before Terminator 2, and those guys went off the rails with their stories. Their Terminators are really bizarre in some places. But one of the things that I noticed is that they would have the Terminators get all pissed off and cranky and act like a child sometimes. And I was like, what is this? And even though that made no sense, one of them was fighting with Skynet over something in its head. I just thought, well, wait a minute. If you left them in read-write mode, and maybe part of their memory had this thing jammed in there that was, kind of keeping their thoughts up against the wall. And they had no guidance for years. Would they start to go off the rails? Would they start to be like that? What would Skynet be if it was put back together, but maybe one or two of those zip files were corrupt and left some things out? What if
defrag its drive?
Yeah, one or two of those Terminators actually didn't make it to upload the zip,
Right.
So that's what in all those comics from Dark Horse and from Now, Skynet exists after 2029, but we know Skynet's destroyed in 2029. So that's where I came up with 2.0. But yeah, no, the idea of these different aspects totally fits in exactly with what I put in the core book. So.
Cool. It's good to know, not like you idiot. You understand nothing. Why would you do that? Okay, I will make some changes on my side.
For the game you're not GMing.
Yes.
The game I'm not GMing, yes. Shows that I can't help myself. Oh, this would be a good idea.
My character will bring this up for some reason.
I need to meet a Terminator so that I can give him the idea that he can go back to Skynet so that he can...
Excuse me, Terminator. Have you ever considered? I'm not terrified of you because I want to get this idea across.
Oh, that
This
would
actually-
be the fear mechanic, though.
True.
Something which I really like.
You really like the
I
fear
didn't.
mechanic. Is it your
Oh,
favorite?
I
so
really
far?
like the fear mechanic.
Yeah.
I didn't. I failed. I'll fail everything. I'll fail
Yeah,
every
but you
fear
are a
test I
child
make.
running around.
So
I am
will I. I will fail everything too. My cool is also 1, but we'll
Yeah.
manage. We'll survive.
But it makes sense because these Terminators are, virtually indestructible, and coming up against them, you would be shitting yourself.
I like that you say
and-
that, and yet then the other party member shot it once and it was dead.
Oh, well, yes, but in fairness, it was already really damaged.
Okay.
That's a great aspect of games like the stress in Aliens,
Yes.
here in this. It's
That
like
was fun.
it helps so much because, like I've always said, it's like there's that player who saw Aliens and whatever, I just put a gun to its head. It's like I'm a big badass. But your character probably wouldn't. And that's if you have somebody who has that disconnect, they're just going to ruin it for the whole table.
True.
So
Right.
if they can, those rules help them to see, you don't get to control what you're afraid of. It can help people to understand, okay, I guess I guess I have to do this way, and work around it. So yeah, it's I love the insanity in Call of Cthulhu. I love the fear mechanic here, but I still got to say that the number one has to go to the stress for Alien, because
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah,
I
we
liked that a
agree.
lot.
Yeah,
I've seen too much fucked up things happen because of that stress mechanic.
Oh no, it was
100%.
we had I don't remember if we've told you before, but we had in Alien, we were carrying a wounded NPC and she was horrifically wounded. She'd been burned from acid by a face hugger. She was nearly dead.
Spoiler
Anyway.
alert.
Oh. For our
Yeah, people haven't
Alien,
listened to
for
ours.
our Alien campaign.
Yep.
Okay, you can put a spoiler for that too. But we were trying to help her up a ladder, and then again, someone who's not here, Chris, he panicked, and when he rolled, he got drop item. So he dropped her.
Drop the item that you're holding. The only thing he was holding was Miranda. So
Theodora. He was holding
Theodora.
And,
Theodora.
and it was so bad.
Oh, that's awesome. That is just it's so terribly awesome.
But
know,
it really added to the scene, because you
Yeah.
expect to the kind of thing that would happen in the movie, right?
Yeah, normally
Yeah.
I guess if you roll that, you're dropping your gun. You're dropping, I don't know, but he dropped poor Theodora.
So did she fall down the ladder shaft or what?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, all the way
Died.
down.
Yeah.
She horrifically died.
Yeah. Almost killing Adam's character, who was at the bottom
Yes.
of the ladder.
Yes.
And then we're just getting over that, and Emily has this amazing meltdown scene.
Well, I
where she
rolled
starts-
panic too, and mine was run away. So I was trying to get back down or up. We were going down. I
Up.
was trying to
You were
get
trying to
back
get
up
up.
the ladder into another character, started screaming at him. Poor Ken
Yeah.
was like, what is going on here? And yeah.
She
Oh.
was she went straight into crying and amazing acting, and poor Ken. I remember looking at Adam just going, thank fuck it's not us in this scene, because we'd have to keep up with Emily's good acting. And poor Ken is trying to keep up with Emily because he wasn't prepared for any of this.
It's okay. It's fine.
And
My
she's just
family,
like,
my
"I
family
don't know what
comes down being like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah. Yeah, she had a family come down. They thought something truly bad had happened.
Like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm in character. Go away.
Oh my god.
So yes, watch our Alien if you haven't, people. Watch our Alien.
Because the stress mechanic is amazing in Alien.
That
That's
worked
what
really
that
well.
tangent was about. We really like.
Yes. But this question related was Emily's. So this is about all the different character classes. So I don't want to ask your question.
Oh, the character class. Yeah. So we did. So in Terminator, we
Mhm.
actually have 2 out of the 3 characters are kind of non-combat focused, and we did notice
The
there's
crit
a
fail
lot.
way.
Yes, there's a lot of characters that aren't, like, you've got your medic, your historian, you've got all kinds of things that aren't necessarily combat heavy. Do you think it works to have a party based of non-combatants? Is that survivable in this universe, or is it very necessary to have people who can fight?
I think it's really easy to say, "Oh, it's a Terminator. I'm going to get the big guns and blah blah blah," but in the movies, they always beat it with their brains.
Mm.
You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So I think it's more important that it's people who can do things other than just shoot a gun. Do you need to be able to shoot a gun? Yes. Okay. Yeah. But do you need to be the big hulking? Do you need to be a colonial marine to go against the Terminator? Colonial marine is probably going to die against the Terminator, actually. But someone who uses their brains to unless the colonial marine, is like Hudson, the tech guy. My point is this: you gotta use your head if you're going to beat these things, just like with the Alien, because they're way overpowered compared to the
Stronger than you.
people.
They're
Yeah.
faster than you. You gotta out.
I mean, that's the point of the movies, and that's the point of the game. I on both series, I said that the Terminator or the Alien, depending, needed to be as unstoppable as they were in their first movie.
Okay.
Because that's what people remember. That relentlessness is what people hook into when they first saw it, and we need to bring that to the game. It's that fear, or as they call it, stress in Alien. You need to feel that at the table. You need to be like, oh fuck, I need to run.
Right.
Should players go into Terminator expecting to survive it or expecting not to? And by that I realize I mean their characters. The players should survive.
Yes.
Yeah, the players should survive.
Yeah. No.
The
Yeah.
characters.
Unless you're really dedicated to the role. Method acting.
It's interesting with Alien. I always tell people, just you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Right.
You know? But with Terminator, I think in Terminator it really depends on how stupid you are.
Okay. I like that answer.
Well,
We
I'm
now
gonna
know
die
if we die,
if I ever
it's
play
our own fault.
it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean you personally. I mean your character, like the stupid
Right.
choices your character makes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
With Alien, I just think it's, in some ways it's almost like dumb luck that people get to survive in Alien. Okay. With Terminator, I think it's more of a, okay, we T-1000. Okay, so cold affects it, you know, heat affects it. There's these things that we can use against it like that. You know, it's I don't think it's the same with Alien. For some reason, it's just more like, and maybe that's because one's a machine, and ultimately we did build machines. You know, we are the creators of machines. Yeah, Alien is just alien. It's unknowable. It's some other life form that is not like us. So maybe that's where I'm getting this in my head. I mean, you're probably going to die in both of them. So I'm just, but I think that if you can keep yourself, if you're smart, you can keep yourself one step ahead of the Terminator, because the Terminator has a specific set of goals in mind. Okay. Once you figure out what he's up to, you have a chance of defeating him. You're never going to know what the hell the alien's up to.
Right. Machine predictability.
Yeah. It's what makes the alien. We don't understand it.
Right.
But the fact that it's a Terminator, okay, it's here. It's probably here to kill somebody. Okay. It's in his goddamn name. All right. Who is he trying to kill? All right. Do we care? If we don't care, we stay out of the way. If we do care, how do we lure it into a trap, pull some A-team stuff on it, and you know, defeat it? It's about thinking on your feet.
But as it's more of a war story than Alien, was that an important reason why there needed to be multiple versions of Terminators, from far easier ones up to the T-800, T-1000s?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same reason we have, it's the same philosophy behind it. Didn't actually turn out this way because, I mean, the abominations are pretty hard to kill, but they're still not as hard to kill as an alien, you know? Right. So you can't have a game where you can't accomplish anything, because then you don't feel, it may seem like a good idea to make your players feel hopeless, but there becomes a point where they're like, what am I even doing here? And they just leave.
Right.
I don't want to play this anymore.
Okay. But if you have the T-600, who is bigger than the T-800, carries a fucking Gatling gun, you know, but they're dumb as bricks and they have a weak spot, and you could probably take them out. Okay. You take those out, you start to feel a little confident about yourself, like I can succeed in this world. And then the T-800 rips your heart out, you know. There has to be that different level of I can accomplish this, but there always has to be the challenge of what's the next harder thing. Right. The Alien Queen and Aliens, the T-1000 in Terminator, you know. There's always a bigger fish. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's you guys have asked really good questions this time because you've got me thinking about stuff that I didn't think of before.
We're as crazy as you in our own way.
Yes, it seems that way. It seems that way.
Oh dear.
I knew I liked you guys for some reason.
What's the scariest Terminator?
Yeah,
What's
I was going to say
scariest Terminator? Personally,
Sure, why not? Or what should?
Well, Chris had an amendment to that one too.
okay.
What was your favorite? Because the coolest to
true,
you
the
might not
coolest.
necessarily be the scariest.
Okay.
So it was like, what's the scariest and what was your personal favorite? They might be the same, but they might not be.
I think the T-1000 is the scariest to me
Okay.
personally.
Fair.
It's just I still go like this when I think about him sticking his finger through that guy's head and
Hand
Yeah.
through the whole torso in the car.
yeah, and it's and again it comes down to being smart, because if you're smart, you might notice that your friend is acting a little weird because he's a T-1000 and he's not your friend.
Yeah.
So it's a different philosophy for playing Terminator. It's definitely, the more aware you are, the better chance. In Alien, the more aware you are, the better chance you have to run away before everyone else does. So, but it's still the alien. You run away from the alien. Alien could wind up going through the ducts and showing up ahead of you. Terminator's not going to do that.
Right.
There's well, a T-1000 might, though, I guess. Yeah. So but the Arnold T-800 is not going to do that. So there's more of a predictability to how to defeat it, but it's still it's a predictability, but it's not a boringness, because this thing will bring it like there's nothing else.
Right.
But
it's a different fear.
Yeah. So I say the T-1000 is the scariest. My favorite one is got to be the Hunter Killer. I just think I've just loved it from the beginning. It's awesome. I love the idea of it. I mean, in some ways, this is scary too. I love the idea. It's relentlessly searching for you. It's flying low over the rubble, trying to find that hole that you climbed into. And it's going to vaporize you once it finds you. So there's something terrifying about that as well.
I always loved those first in Terminator 1. My favorite sequences were the flashbacks. Always, well, flash forwards in his case. Always seeing the tanks. And the sounds, because I don't think they played music. I think it was one of those sequences where they don't play music. So you just had that sound of the energy pulses going off and the explosions. And I thought,
it's more
we need a movie there. That's what we need, a movie. And then they made the fourth one.
But they didn't make it there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, the music, there is music in those scenes, but it takes a second. It takes a back seat to the sound effects of the lasers. In the game there's a couple of Terminators that I created from scratch. I made a Hunter Killer that operates on the water, because we had land, air, sea. So it's sort of a hydrofoil thing. There's this a transport truck. Do you guys ever watch Speed Racer?
Yes.
Okay. The Mammoth car.
The Mammoth car.
Basically, that is a Terminator in the game.
Oh my gosh, that would be terrifying.
Yes. And the Terminators use it to transport things across country.
Have either of you seen the Mammoth car? When they say mammoth, this thing is like, I don't know how long it is. It's crazy.
It's a train.
It's a train, basically.
It's a train with tires, and
it goes into a race because they say any car can enter, and they're like, okay. we brought this train.
I gotta say, as the youngest, I'm surprised that you're the one who would have known.
No, we had my dad loved Speed Racer, and we
Okay.
had DVDs of it, so we watched them as kids, and I loved it. I just thought it was amazing. I don't know, but you two need to watch Speed Racer.
The second drive-through RPG adventure that's available, it takes place on one of those Terminators.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, I'm just like, okay, let's face it. They're gonna want to transport things across the country, you know. But maintaining a railway, why not just make it a train with wheels? And I was like, wait a minute, that mammoth car. I thought about that.
Yeah, makes sense.
And smuggle gold bars too.
And the car itself, the truck itself, is going to be a goddamn Terminator. You know it. It's going to run itself, just like the tanks and the aerial hunter killers do. So yeah, so he's one of my favorite things that I've created.
I think that sounds awesome.
I have to say, in the fourth, I think my favorite thing was the motorcycles. Although I did say when we were watching it did feel a little Transformer-y, but I did like the motorcycles.
I think that they wouldn't have felt Transformer-y if there wasn't a Transformer in that movie as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Huge. I have to admit, I wasn't expecting that huge one till reached in and.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's Transformers in Terminator 4.
Yeah, I think the production may have tried too hard.
Yeah.
You know, it's Beneath the Planet of the Apes, the second Planet of the Apes movie. Okay, it's like, okay, well, it's been a few years since the first movie came out, and people don't have VHS because this is when, you know, back in the late 60s, early 70s. Yeah. So we're going to retell the story of the first movie again in the first half of this second movie. Okay. But then we're going to fill the second half of the movie with, am I shocking you? Because the shock of the end of the first movie was really popular. So, and then we're going to shock you with this, and we're going to shock you with this, we're going to shock you with this. So there's some awesome concepts in that movie. But as a movie, it's kind of like, okay, you know, it's hard to outdo yourself.
Right.
Is what it comes down to, you know. I had a bigger connection, but the minute I said Planet of the Apes, I forgot what I was talking about.
They tried too hard in Terminator 4 because of the big giant.
The Terminator.
Right.
The Terminator that was a Transformer.
Yeah.
There you go. So it's like, now there's bikes that are Terminators. Isn't that shocking? Now there's a Transformer. Isn't that shocking? You know, it's just reel it in. You know, I've actually made the same mistake on a couple of things. People say Destroyer of Worlds is everything plus the kitchen sink. It is. But they were just trying so hard to create an identity that was their Terminator.
Okay.
You know,
that's with all the different people involved, we didn't make the T800. Okay, we didn't make the T1000. What can we make? Giant Transformer.
We'll make bikes. We'll make Marcus. We'll make a Transformer. We'll make, you know, this. We'll make that. You know, so now it's ours. Now it's our version of Terminator.
Our thing. Our iconic Terminator.
Yep. But
those scenes were still pretty cool, though. I have to admit. Those scenes were still pretty cool. Like the scene at the petrol station was, I was like, wow, crank up the volume because, like, explosions and the sound of the Terminators was awesome. Yeah.
Oh, that was a bit mean in that scene because I do remember the guy running away. He gets hit by the car and he gets up and starts running again. And then when the other car comes out, I said to Emily, is it just me or did you kind of want him to get hit by the other car that was coming out as well? Just like, you're having a really bad day, dude. Not only have you got...
I thought what was mean was they show all the people like hiding underground and then they just blow up the whole thing.
But yeah, I did like the bikes, but yeah, it did seem a little... I was just waiting for the Transformer sound to happen when they came out of the legs and that, but...
Yes, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks again, Drew. It was a pleasure having you.
Oh, and check out the Black Ballad. on BackerKit. And March 28th is going to be the phone ringing.
Yes.
And
Everyone, watch for your phones to ring on March 20th.
March 20th, yeah, everybody's it's like Lawnmower Man. Everybody's phone's gonna ring at the same time. March 28th is the Terminator 2 source book Kickstarter for Nightfall Games Terminator role-playing game. So
and all the links will be in the description.
Awesome.
And we want to thank Drew for spending time like always. Yes, but don't worry, people, because he'll be back.
It'll be back. God,
now I won't.
So corny.
And you know what? We couldn't blame you.
Oh, come on. It wouldn't be me if I didn't do some terrible, horrible...
Hey, you didn't ask if the Predator's going to be in Terminator.
That's right. That's right.
You
the Predator crossover.
Nope.
Never. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Have a great one, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Drew.
Cool.
What? No. Oh my God.
Luke, you want to be included.
Oh,
I'm so left out. Everyone's got cats but me.
Yep.